So let's just get started. So did everybody listen to Sunday Call by any chance? If you did not, that's fine. I thought that we would talk about food pushing. And if you've had food pushing on you, how that makes you feel. Maybe you've been a food pusher. And what kind of like feelings come from that after. And I feel like food pushing looks, it looks differently. It's not always like, oh, come on, have that. It's not always like that. Like I grew up in a household where we all sat at the dinner table and we had to ask to be excused to leave. And usually it was based upon how much food we ate, right? I remember one night, my sister hates zucchini. And she was like, can I be excused? No, you got to eat your zucchini. And it was a whole screaming match. And my mom ended up like just getting so exhausted of my dad and my sister fighting that she stood up and shoved the zucchini in her mouth, right? She does not eat zucchini to this day. And so it's like, my dad was always the cook and he was a healthy cook. We didn't eat like horrible food by any means. It was like Fitme plate style, but it was the fact that we had to eat a certain amount. And I never, until this topic, I've thought about that before, but I never considered that like food pushing. But I realized that in turn, I have done that to my children. Like, oh, I'm done. I'm stuffed, I'm whatever. And I'm like, no, 10 more bites. You know what I mean? I've done things like that before. And it's like, who really am I to say like, maybe they're like intuitively eating and they're done, they're stuffed and I'm forcing them to eat more. And so food pushing doesn't always have to, look one way. It can come in many different directions. And I guess the feels around those things are kind of what makes it feel more food pushy than not. And so I thought we'd talk about it and we can brainstorm suggestions, or if, you have a family cycle, because I think food pushing also happens like environmentally, culturally, like in the home, a lot that just is, comes from grandmas, great grandmas and on down the line. Because I hear a lot of times like, we always, food was our celebration. Food was this, food was that. It was always we made these certain meals. And so food pushing looks different and it's for different reasons. So let's open it up and talk about it.
Sorry, I'm literally eating dinner because I just got home from church. So I didn't want to like be eating in y'all's face. So I had a similar experience with my grandma. My parents had gone on a trip and my grandma had come and stayed with us. And my grandfather was born in Hungary and his family was very poor. So they had this really cheap dish that they would make. We call it spinach. So it's a spinachy cream sauce over boiled eggs and potatoes and some ham. And as a kid, I hated it. And my dad grew up eating it because that's what they had. It wasn't the only thing they had, but that was something that was like, I guess, their comfort food. And she made it one night when she was watching us. My parents were gone for like a week. And I don't remember how old I was, maybe 10 or 12, something like that. And I had homework to do. I remember that. And I remember I sat at the table until like 9:00 at night because I would not eat it. I was not going to eat it. I hated it. I wasn't going to eat it. And finally, she did eventually let me get up to go do homework because it was so late. But yeah, I hadn't really thought about that as food pushing. I started listening to the call while I was walking this afternoon, but I didn't get to finish it. So, but I hadn't really thought about it like that. Mm-hmm. And my other grandma, celebrations were always around food. And grandma was like, oh, you need to eat, and your grandmas are just like that, I guess. I didn't really think about that, but yeah. And I think as parents, you were saying that you were doing that to your kids. I think, we want to make sure that they eat wholesome food and not fill up on junk. Cause my kids had a tendency to eat a couple bites and then want candy or chips or, so I guess in that sense, we did push our kids to eat too. And I guess you think, it's with good intentions, mm-hmm. but you don't realize maybe what damage that's going to do to them later. I hadn't thought yet.
Totally. And the other thing is like, since I had to eat a certain amount of food in order to leave the table, it's like when my kids didn't finish their food, I felt like I had to finish their food because like, you know, it kind of went to the whole like wasting thing. And so like the pushing turned into like something completely different, you know, that was also, you know, equally as struggling for me, you know, at one point. And so it's just interesting how like food pushing can turn into something completely different, but you know, in the same category of like food issues.
I think for me, the food pushing is all done in love. Like it's you go to my aunts, my grandparents when they were alive, they always cooked to show you that they loved you. So to turn it down is offensive.
Mhm.
And, and to throw it away is even more offensive. So you don't make a plate, take a bite, and throw it away. That's way and it's disrespectful. So it's like, what do you do? I mean, as I've gotten older, obviously I can make my own plate so that it's not filled with shit. My grandmother would make your plate. And
Oh, yeah. She's like,
exactly. Or with my husband, the first time I went to his grandparents' house, his grandmother made my plate. And I'm not going to throw it away and turn it. I was grossed out by it, but I still ate the shit. It was like smothered in all kinds of lard and it was disgusting. But to throw it away or to not eat it is so disrespectful and it's rude. So as I got older, it's gotten easier. I don't push. I've never pushed food on my kids. In this house, I'm usually saying, "You think you've had enough?" or "That's mine." And my mother, food was pushed on her, and she ended up obese because it felt it's on. I think it did something to her psychologically, where she refused to eat the stuff that they pushed on her, which was generally the good, healthy stuff, and she went totally the opposite way, eating shit that she shouldn't eat all the time. When I was growing up, we never ate vegetables because my mother was forced to eat vegetables as a kid. Never cooked it. I got married and had to learn how to cook veggies. To this day, I'm introducing my mom to veggies because of Fitme.
mm-hmm.
But that's why I don't, like, when we talk about these vegetables, I don't know any of them because I didn't have to eat veggies growing up. Never did I have to eat veggies. My mother doesn't eat them to this day unless I guilt her into it. So they pushed food on her, so she went the opposite way. She didn't push food on me. I don't push food on my kids, but I know what it feels like. But I also know that it's very difficult to turn it down, to say no, to throw it away, because it does give the wrong impression to the people who are showing you love.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's totally great point. I feel like something you said is like the opposite of food pushing, but there's also that, and you've had enough. Like I see, and I've had issues in my life with like eating disorders and, you know, feeling fat and uncomfortable in my skin and always, you know, thinking like that kind of stuff that was almost worse for me than like, you got to eat all your food. Um, it made me feel like, oh, you think I'm like fat and disgusting, or, you know, you think that I'm something. And so like, I feel like that's kind of another way of food push in the opposite direction.
Leah, let me tell you, I took my nephew with me to on vacation. This little boy, he was 5. He ate and ate. My brother's obese. At this point, the little boy's not obese, but he will be
Mm.
if on at the rate that he's going. So he ate. My mom was there. My mom's the no veggies, eat all you want, gain 50 pounds if you want to. It's all good, especially on vacation. Do you know within minutes of him finishing almost a whole pizza, he's 5, drinks milk, he's throwing up because he has eaten himself sick.
Oh,
Eaten. And I was, so the next day, I was like, and he just keeps going and going because that's what we see.
Yeah.
Because my brother eats that way. My mother used to before she had gastric bypass. So it's like you have to regulate because it's just not what we're showing.
Yeah. And
These things.
that is kind of like just like the family environment, the family culture of food pushing without, without pushing. It's just what he's shown. And so that's what he knows. And that is always really heartbreaking to me when I just see generations of a family like obese, 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 obese. And it's more heartbreaking to me because I feel like, when you're like morbidly obese, your quality of life just goes down along with your health. And so it's not even about like, a vein being shredded AF something. It's like, man, your life could be better. You could be more mobile. You could hike, walk, all these things. And so it is very true. It's a form of food pushing without like directly pushing the food, like saying so. Food pushing is like, it's actually a very in-depth concept when you start thinking about it.
So for me, my we do a lot of things too. Everything's out of love.
Mm-hmm.
When we get together, everybody's bringing their best dishes. Everybody's bringing all of the desserts, all of the, we'll cook food. There's only like 6 of us, and we're planning for the whole neighborhood to come over. So we're prepared just in case somebody stops by. So we always have food, like just the count, the whole kitchen's full of food. And everybody's like, here, you've got to try this. Here, you've got to try this. And especially when the weather starts getting warmer and we're doing more, and it's just, you want to get together, you want, to have the drinks, you want to have the fun, but at the same time, everybody's like, here, try this. Here, you got to try this. And I'm like, now for me, this is a whole new season for me to go into summer. Mm-hmm. Being a part of Fitme. So like this past weekend was one of our, like, kind of, it's warmer here. And so now we're getting back together, we're doing things. And I grabbed a bag of frozen asparagus to take with me because I knew there wasn't going to be anything but a veggie tray for vegetables. So, and the whole time I'm there, everybody's like, here, you got to try this dessert. Here, you got to try this dessert. Oh, did you try this? And I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. But yeah, like, what do I do? I don't want it all, because for me, I know that I love sweetbreads, cakes and cookies. And, oh man, I hear some people that say, oh, I ate that and it doesn't taste good anymore. And I'm like, well, why don't I have that palate? Because my palate's like, oh man, let's get some more of that. Where have you been?
Yeah, I agree. And, it's okay. Like when we start like doing more barbecues and hangouts and blah, 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 it's okay to like once in a while, like have a bite of all the things, that we're not trying to stop our lives and enjoying our lives. But, if it's happening every weekend and we have goals that we want to reach, then that's kind of another thing, is just learning how to maneuver and have maybe some things, but not all the things. And, maybe you're going to have like some mac and cheese, some like richer foods and skip the dessert, or maybe you're gonna have a little, and so that's the part of it. It's kind of planning ahead and thinking. And if you're going to things where, your mom is always making her famous, whatever it is, everything, then, it starts becoming less and less like, not delicious, but special, because it's there all the time. So it's like, not like, oh, she makes it once a year. Well, yeah, if she makes it once a year, have as much as you want, darn it. Like, you're only getting it once a year. So yeah. It's about those kind of things too, because sometimes I do go to places and I'm like, oh, I love all the things. Like, I could eat and enjoy every bite of everything here. And so just kind of maneuvering and planning ahead is going to be important. And like saying no with, just saying no is hard enough as it is. Saying no with people like, no, you have to try. Oh my, no, you have to, makes it even exponentially harder. And so we're going to have to think about, what we're going to practice, what we're going to say, or, maybe just, no, thanks. Oh my God, I'm so stuffed. I've already eaten enough, lie. Who cares? Like, it's just kind of one of those things.
Yeah. So
But
this weekend, I looked over. Yeah, I looked over everything and I was like, okay, what do I really want to try? Like, I'll get me a little bit of this, and so I didn't overindulge, and I didn't say no, and I tried it and it was so good. But I had it like that. Okay, this is, I've had my piece. I'm good. And it was okay. But at first I was just like, oh my God, everything's out. The weather's warming up. What's going to happen?
Totally. It's just finding the boundaries. And if the bottom line, ladies, is if people love us and care about us, and if we have that conversation, like, listen, I'm not going to stop enjoying my life, but also, gorging out every weekend at these parties makes me actually feel like crap the next day. Like, I enjoy putting healthy foods in my body, and I'm trying to like live a healthy lifestyle. I'm not trying to like live miserably, but and we just explain what our goals are. Most of the time they're like, oh gosh, okay, man, I'm sorry, or whatever. And so sometimes just putting up the boundary and having the communication about it makes it feel less hard.
My husband is the pusher in our house. Every time we sit down for dinner, have you tried this? Eat this. Oh, look, there's still some of this left. I'm like, leave me the hell alone. If I wanted to eat it, I would eat it. So yeah, my husband gets it from his dad, because his dad is the exact same way. When we go over to his house, here, girl, try this. Oh, look, girl, try this. He doesn't call me by my name, which is fine. I don't care, but but yeah, it's passed down on his side, to always kind of push the food on people. There's something here, there's something there. My mom was the same. I'm sorry, I can't remember who was talking first, but it used to be growing up, we weren't allowed to get up from the table until our food was done, till our plate was empty. And my mom did not care how long I sat there and cried like a sniveling little brat I was. My food would be gone when I got up from the table. So yeah, it is hard to do. And my husband and I don't have kids, so it, for us, I guess in a sense, it won't be passed on that way. But I do think food pushing can be taken out of context a little bit too. Because it's not always that somebody's trying to make you eat too much or eat more. It's just that they're offering that there's something more or new or different there. That's just my take.
No, I agree. And it also kind of sounds like your father-in-law is probably doing it, out of love too. Like, hey, hey girl, here's some food. And sometimes it's like, maybe not, maybe, I think sometimes it's lack of like, just being able to say like, hey, I love you and I care about you. It seems easier to be like, hey, eat this food that I just made. I've tried this. It's really good. It's kind of like I love something that you might love, which is kind of like in a weird way, like showing you that they care about you. And so that also, like Natika was saying, that becomes a tricky one. My husband can push food too. Nothing pisses me off more when he walks in the house with a god darn white bag. And I'm like, get that out of the house. I know what's in there. That's a bakery bag. Like, and he's like, you don't want any of this. And he puts it away, right? Like he knows how to get me. And I'm like, stop. Sometimes it's cool. Sometimes it's not. But it's just a thing of love. It's weird how food becomes this thing of love. And I think sometimes it's because, especially older generations that don't talk about their didn't talk about their feelings in their family lives. It's easier to show love through food. It feels less vulnerable than like saying, hey, I love you. And so when it comes from a good place, it's hard to say no.
I can definitely identify with the being made to sit at the table until your plate was clean.
It must have been an old school thing.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I would sit there for hours because I was a very strong-willed child. In fact, my mom told me one time when I was like 5 or 6 years old, it was Halloween and I was dressed like a little witch. And I had these chipmunk cheeks because I would not swallow my dinner. I still got to go trick-or-treating.
You're like, I'm done. I'm done.
I'm done.
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh, and one of the things that I have to deal with right now is, and a couple years ago, before COVID hit, I had just started cutting sugar and dairy out of my life, and I was doing so good with it. And like when I would go to school with my home health client, they would always be eating, always bringing food in, and it didn't bother me. Now, over the last 6, 7, 8 months, I've let sugar creep in my diet, and it's really, really hard to say no.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Like literally the handful of times that I've been to a birthday party and said no to cake, like I still remember each and every time. Like that's how that's how less often I can say no than I can say yes. I feel like it's a really big deal. And when like saying no to the sugar treat at an event or a party or anywhere, when that happens, I feel like that's a big deal. And it is a big deal. And like, that's kind of the thing that I try to remember when I say no to something, especially at an event. Like when I say no to something, I try to remember how that felt like when I got home. Like, oh my God, I pulled it off. Like I'm rad. Like I did it. And then the times I feel like when I like gluttoned out and ate, 4 pieces of cake kind of thing. And I'm like, oh God, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I feel so crappy. And so that's kind of the thing that I try to remember. Like, is the boundary and the awkwardness in that 30 seconds worth feeling like crap, or is it worth feeling like good? And so that's the thing about putting a boundary up, is the boundary may seem scary. It may be awkward. It may be all these things, but like, who cares? It lasts 30 seconds, that little lasts like seconds, right? Like how we feel later.
Yeah, because no matter how much I savor it, when I'm done, it's gone.
I know. That's what I say all the time. I got to swallow it and it's gone. I got to swallow it and it's gone. At some point, it's got to stop.
Right. And totally. Like, it makes me feel dopey.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And I'm just like, I've got to stop feeling this way.
How are you fueling yourself? Just side thought. Because sometimes when I go on sugar binges, it's because, and I've been noticing this more and more, it's because I'm not giving my body what it needs throughout the day. And so at the end of the night, I call it, instead of a sugar craving, I call it an energy craving, because the body's smart. And if we haven't given it all that it should, that it needed throughout the day, at the end of the night, it's going to be like, give me that quick energy right now. You don't even actually have a say in this. I'm just going to take it. And so I noticed that when I go in on those binges where I'm like on a, even if I've cleaned everything out, I'll be on a stool looking at all the top things. And, you know, there's gotta be something around here somewhere. My husband's like, you are a psycho. But it's because I have not. And I'll think back and be like, oh, I had breakfast. I skipped lunch. I had a little snack. Oh yeah, that's why. So just, you know, thinking back through your day, like, what have you given yourself as fuel?
Right. I've been starting with first bite counts, and eating a Fitme plate in the morning.
Awesome.
But I've been really struggling to get all my water.
That'll do it too.
And I know when I drink all my water, I don't struggle as much.
That'll do it too. Because I think we interpret thirst for hunger. Like I notice when I'm thirsty, I'm more like, I need something else. I'm just not sure what it is. And that usually leads to a cookie. Oh, it wasn't a cookie. A couple bites of ice cream. Oh, it wasn't a couple bites of ice cream. Like I have to try all these things until I'm like, man, I'm actually really thirsty. And so just, you know, knowing that and paying attention to that. And, you know, sometimes we're spot on and sometimes we still suck at it. It's just practice. Well, thank you, ladies. Does anybody have anything else they want to say before we go? Okay, awesome.
Thanks, Lee.
You're welcome. I will see you ladies next week. If there's anything you guys want to talk about, you just let me know. Okay.
Yeah.
I thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.